this panel by offering the Pledge of Allegiance, so please join me in that. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Gentlemen and madam, welcome back from Cheyenne. Glad to see everybody's doing well. Senator Jones, Senator Kolb, welcome back from Washington, D.C. Thank you for what you do. Thank you all for what you do. We are very fortunate to have great leadership in our community, and we appreciate the effort and the work and the sacrifices that all of you make on our behalf for making us a better place. And it's all because of your hard work, and we very much appreciate everything that you do. So thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for all your work, and we look forward to hearing from you. The purpose of this panel is to give the community an opportunity to hear a return and report from our legislators firsthand. I know that we had a panel before you went down, what you expected to accomplish, what you'd hoped to do while you were down in Cheyenne. This is kind of a return and report. So what we'd like to hear from you is some of the main things that you've worked on, some of your aspirations for the future, and how you think things look for us. Be honest and be truthful, and give it to us straight. We're also going to give the opportunity for anyone in the audience to ask questions, if that's okay. I didn't tell you that part, did I? I probably should have. Well, nobody would have showed up. But if you would like to ask a question, please come down to the microphone, turn it on, and make sure you address inappropriateness and ask respectful questions. Because what we want to do is just make things better. So again, thank you for all that you've done. What we'd like to do now, we also need to thank the City of Rock Springs for letting us use this. Mayor Mickelson and City Council, thank you for being here tonight. And thank you for the use of this room. This is a good facility, and also for your exceptional IT people and your staff for all that they do. We really appreciate you very much. So with that, Representative Larson, if you want to introduce yourself and then on down the line, kind of give us an idea of some of the main features that you're working on, some of the ideas, and what you expect to accomplish moving forward.
Thank you, Rick, and the Rock Springs Chamber for hosting this. My name is JT Larson, serve for House District 17, which is Southeast Rock Springs. I'll kind of go through a few of the bills that I ran during session. There was one that made it through, and it's vehicle registration, e-certificate, and grace period. And what that allows now is you can carry your vehicle registration electronically. I was happy to work with Treasurer Mark Cowan on that specific project, and really excited to get that specific bill through. Trying to just make life a little bit easier for the average person, especially people who live far away from the county seat, and it's harder to travel. So it'll save people money in the long run, and we're really excited about that. The other one I ran was local impact assistance payments, percentage discretion, and that has to do with industrial siting, trying to get more state dollars to communities without increasing any tax burden on the local taxpayer. So those were the two bills I ran this session, and I look forward to continuing to serve you, as I've already announced, for the next election. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Rick. Tony Nemick, House District 60, south side of Green River. Being a budget session, I only sponsored one bill, and that was a pro-law enforcement bill for the State Parks Police. I think in the interim, we're going to start working on that one because it didn't make it, lost it by one vote, so we're working on that. Before we went down, told you I was interested in every single property tax relief bill that came forward, and luckily we got all them through. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick, and thank you everybody for coming out tonight. It's good to see so many people come out and interested in what we did and what we got to accomplish. I didn't personally run. Cody Wiley, House District 39, Northwest Rock Springs, a little bit of Green River between Riverview and Second. I personally, because it was a budget session, didn't think it was appropriate to bring a personal bill because as the time was gaining to session, and I was reading the bills that were coming in. There was just so many, a lot of personal bills coming in, and to try to get everything that we had on our plates worked through in the 20 days, I just didn't feel it was appropriate for me to bring a bill. If I want to, I'll design some legislation and bring it through later. I did advocate for House Bill 72. It was a continuation on my work with workers' comp last time. That bill failed. I picked it up. I continued to work on it with leadership and push it through. It went into appropriations, and at the end of the day, that bill did get signed into law. And what it's going to do is bring our workers' compensation premiums down, and it's going to save roughly $30 million annually back to the private sector. What that's going to do is help our industry and our folks that are employing people reinvest into their workforce, create new jobs, and kind of move forward that way. I'm kind of a nuts and bolts guy. I have a business background, and that's what I look at a lot of things. If it's a good deal and it works out for the state of Wyoming and my family, friends, and neighbors, my constituents back home, I try to make that decision. We ran some polls and stuff locally here before we left. We asked you what you wanted us to get done. Property tax, funding some stuff for mental health was just partial of the work that we did. We got property tax done. I think we did that responsibly, fiscally responsibly. Because what we have to understand is the property tax is how we fund our local governments, our county, our cities, our EMS districts. That all is where our property tax money goes to. So we couldn't get too far down the road on that and too far down the leash, because if we would have mishandled that, I believe that we would have been leading us down a road to where we would have a corporate income tax or an income tax. And I don't want to be a part of a body that's going to take us that direction. I think we handled it responsibly. We're going to have some good reform coming. There's going to be a constitutional amendment on the ballot this next time around. I ask everybody to favorably look at that. That's going to help us separate industrial from residential property tax. So I think that was done well. We funded mental health best we could. It kept getting stripped out. We kept putting it back in. The word assist now is $10 million for 988 into the trust fund, and it'll generate its own money going forward, and we'll have other opportunities to build upon that. Some of the other stuff we worked on were some of the local projects and stuff. The Sweetwater delegation all worked on the new high school, and it was good news that we're going to bring that home. Moving forward, I think we just continue to do what we're doing now and be fiscally and socially responsible, and I look forward to it. Thanks.
Hi, thank you for coming out tonight. Stacy Jones, Senate District 13. My district is Rock Springs and Green River. Let's see, my bill unfortunately did not make it, but it was a great bill, and I'm hoping to work on it a little bit and bring it back again. It was all the wind generators that you see across the state. They actually get to operate for 3 years before any of the counties or the state make any money off of them. So my bill was going to start taxing them the minute they start making energy. Then we would also get paid for it. But I will work on that and bring that again later on. Other things, like Cody talked about, the school. The school was a huge thing. I worked really hard on that. I actually was appointed to the Joint Conference Committee #2 and was able to finally get a conservative budget that did include our high school. And it was a great learning experience, and I was very fortunate to be on that. That's probably the two highlights, I think, of this year. It was a hard session, but we did get a conservative budget and we got a high school. So those are pretty fabulous things.
Oh, good evening, everyone. Started off well. I'm John Kolb, Senate District 12, which is most of Rock Springs and some north of town. After the district boundaries changed after the last redistricting. I'll touch on a few highlights. I think you've already heard probably the number one thing that people were concerned about was the high school. I'd say that the Senate passed that budget by 2 votes, and with that we got a new high school. I'd like to explain that before we didn't get a new high school. All you had was construction diagrams and documents to build one, but without money. So the difference is there's a fully funded high school as opposed to just construction documents, which I think is a rather huge difference. And I think there was a lot of, I don't know, misunderstanding about what that exactly meant for what the high school was going to be. But to be clear, it is fully funded, which is really a huge win for us. Next, I'll touch on your personal property taxes. There's multiple bills out there. The governor, unfortunately, hasn't really signed these yet, so we're waiting for it. But there's numerous ones that are going to become effective immediately, and there's one with 25% reduction, $2 million cap. And then the other bill is over 65 years of age, and if you lived in, pay property taxes in the state of Wyoming for 25 years, it's a 50% tax reduction. Now, these have passed the House and Senate, but of course waiting the governor's signature, which I can't control that. So I don't know what the outcome's going to be, but those are pending, and we did get those through. There was a veterans tax exemption that doubled, which really wasn't a lot of money. It isn't a lot of cost as opposed to the 25. Let me backtrack a little bit. The 25% reduction cost to the state of Wyoming is $250 million, and it's 2-year sunset. So it's a huge amount of money that we're talking about that we can't use in other places. But obviously, it's a big problem, and maybe not so much for Sweetwater County, although I think everybody likes to have property tax relief. I think you'll get used to it pretty quick. But it was definitely a very expensive program to initiate. The next one, these are some bills that I had, my personal bills. Senate File 86, which is gun safety in schools. And that has a $480,000 allocation to it. Once again, hasn't been signed by the governor yet. But what this does is allow the school district, the board, to authorize that kind of training. They have to do it. No one's forcing them. And there's currently the statute that allows them to do that without funding. So this is a funding mechanism for school safety. That's what that bill did, and it made it all the way through and awaiting the signature. There's Senate File 131, which was a regulatory reduction task force bill that I ran. It unfortunately didn't make it out of the speaker's drawer in the House, and it made it out of the Senate, though. Then there was the ARPA bill, Senate File 132 that I ran, and that was a bill that I ran because it died in the House, the original ARPA bill. And for however you want to look at ARPA funding, frankly, my philosophy on this is I would rather spend it here because it's going to be spent in Wyoming than let it go to California, let it go to some other places that are going to spend it on things I absolutely don't agree with. The bill didn't make it through what's called conference committee because they put it in the budget. So this is there's a lot of things moving around here with how this process works, but it became unneeded because it was in the budget, and before it wasn't. And anyway, that I did learn a good lesson about more than I knew before about running things through House appropriations. Then talk about, I think lastly is the DC trip we took to go back and see Tracy Stone Manning about the Rock Springs RMP. We had a little delegation, Senator Dockstetter, Senator Jones, and myself, and Commissioner Jones all went over there to have a personal conversation in D.C. with Director Manning. I'll report, my opinion is it went well. It went as well as it could have gone. I think we're always better to go there and plead our case, to tell those folks directly, and it was just Director Manning. They didn't lawyer up. We didn't have a bunch of people in the room. It was the director and our group talking directly to the director. I think we reiterated our point that, frankly, during the process, everybody took a certain section of the economy and talked about that. I think we came across as reasonable people, concerned about our citizens, concerned about what alternate B means to us and how it's not in our best interest at very many levels. I'll just say I briefly spoke. I'll just summarize by saying I did speak about agriculture, and those folks are multi-generational, and a lot of this affects them directly. And I said they have a direct interest in protecting the land, and they've done a good job. It still exists, and they continue to do the right things for the right reasons because they understand the land, and they're directly connected to that. That was one, and about right-of-ways is another big deal about how they could chop up our county and make it so you can't go from one place to another place because you can't cross a certain exclusion area. So that was another point. But everybody did a very good job. I think we made our point, and we're better off by making a point in D.C. than just, say, complaining here about it, to ourselves. And I think it helps that we go out and we engage at this level. And I was happy to be part of that. Lastly, with the budget, I'd like to talk about, you probably heard about I got a lot of newspaper stories, which is designed to sell newspapers. So let me try to elaborate on, and that's no dig against the newspapers. That's your job.
Really?
The budget conversation really was about transparency for me, transparency and being responsible with the budget. We successfully removed the Rose Bowl Day Parade float for $800,000, which I quite didn't understand. You can't win them all when it comes to a budget negotiation. I mean, we had a 90% agreement and a $1.1 billion differential between the House and the Senate. And with that, we ended up $208 million below the governor's recommendation for a budget. So, we didn't get to a halfway point. I'll say, though, it was the best we could do, given the circumstances. Senator Jones did a great job. She was in there, representing the position, but it's really hard to get anything done when you get outvoted in a group of people. So I think we did it as well as we could. We can always do better. The issue also is transparency in a budget. I don't know if anyone's ever tried to read the state's budget, but it is not easily read, and I think it's designed not to be easily read. So the issue would be is try to clean it up, make it more easily understandable, so you can understand where the money's flowing, how much money we're spending on schools, how much money we're spending on whatever we're spending it on, instead of it going through this crazy Rube Goldberg contraption of putting funds in different places. So that was another big issue. And with that, I'll conclude my comments. I've probably taken up too much time, but I appreciate everybody coming out tonight and listening. And I always will be able to answer questions. Please contact me directly if you do have a question. Reach out to me. We'll have a conversation. I prefer that to a text message, but I guess however you'd like to communicate, that's fine by me. I just want to share what I know with you, and then you can take that information and judge it for what you think it is. Thank you.
So, question, Senator Kolb, do you do sign language? Just kidding. Got it. Well, my name's Larry Hicks. I represent Senate District 11, which is all of Carbon County and all of eastern Sweetwater County. And so it's the largest Senate district in the lower 48. So it goes all the way down to Utah and Colorado, all the way up to Sublette County. So I've got all of Farson, Eden, all those remote areas, all the way to the Sublette County, and I go all the way past Arlington to the Carbon County line over there. It's got more incorporated municipalities than any other district, with an average population of about 800. And so I live down in the Tri-Cities area of Carbon County. For those of you not familiar with that, that's Baggs, Dixon, and Savory. I live outside of the metropolitan area of Baggs down there. I'm kind of the old timer here. I'm just sitting here and I'm looking at my colleagues on the House, and so other than
than a Representative Stith, I've got a little more time in the legislature than the rest of the panel. So I come from a little bit of a different perspective, given the time that I've spent down there. I did want to take up one thing about Senator Kolb's comments on newspapers. And so you folks always remember what Mark Twain said. If you don't read the newspapers, you're uninformed. And if you do read the newspapers, you're misinformed. So I think that's what my colleague was, I think that's what my colleague was trying to say. So anyway, so one of the things that typically happens in the legislature back to the press, whether it's print media or electronic media nowadays, is most of us get up in the morning and we go click to see what we did the day before because we have to read it on the press to make sure that we actually did something. So, but with that, I kind of want to jump into a little bit different, just my background. I think me and Representative Stith are the only ones that have had the opportunity to serve on the Appropriations Committee over the years. I take a little bit different view because I have a long-term view of where we need to go with the state of Wyoming, and that just comes from the time and the opportunity that I've had to serve the people in Sweetwater and Carbon County. And we have some real structural problems with our budget when we go out and we start looking forward. And it was actually exacerbated with some of the property tax relief bills that we passed. And so when we talk about the structural component of the budget, our budget and fiscal people will tell you we have the most volatile stream of revenue ever in the history of the state of Wyoming. So when I came in, natural gas was the number one driver. We had the Jonah, the Anacline, the Wamsutter. All that stuff was the biggest source of single revenue for the state of Wyoming was those natural gas. That's shifted to oil now. Oil is actually on the decline. The one thing that has offset all that decline was property taxes. And so not only do your property taxes fund all those local services, it's the single biggest source of funding our K through 12 education program. So by the action that we took in the legislature this year for property tax relief, and particularly when we get with, I don't remember, it was House Bill 45 that caps those going forward, that's a significant reduction that funds K through 12. Now keep in mind, K through 12 costs more to fund than the entire rest of the state of Wyoming's budget. So you think all your junior colleges, your community colleges, local government distribution, the 80 or 90 some agencies we have, and we just eliminated with the property tax relief the most significant fund for K through 12 education. And our budget and fiscal people will tell you, you can't do property tax relief, and this will get back to dealing with school construction, whether it's Rock Springs, moving forward. We're not going to have the $150 to $200 million a year towards, or we can't fund the ECA. And what the ECA is, external cost adjustment. That's what funds increases in teacher salary, energy, books, materials, all those things due to inflation that go up, then increase the cost of education. And because of our structural issues and the way we fund the education side of the budget versus the general fund of the side of the budget, we're looking out now with these property tax relief bills that in 3 to 4 years, our education system is going to be broke. And this is predicated on assumption based on mineral prices. We have what we call the Consensus Revenue Estimating Group, and they look out and what are projected future prices for natural gas in Wyoming? What are future prices for oil? What are future prices for coal? What are future prices for Trona? All those mineral severance taxes. What does our horizon look like for sales tax coming into the state of Wyoming? And now we know with the cap that we've implemented with property tax, that cannot go up more than 4% a year. So that's a fixed thing. We start in 2026, 4% increase. K through 12 increases at a cost of 4.5% a year. Structurally, that doesn't work when your revenues are not keeping up with the cost. And so when I look at this thing and I look at the budget, and I'm looking out 2, 4, 6 years, and we've got a lot of problems in the state of Wyoming that are coming down, and it talked about, I think it was one of these, is, I don't want to be the guy here that has to raise taxes on corporate income taxes, or increases in sales taxes, or increases in mineral severance taxes. And so my focus has been the last year or two in my capacity as the majority floor leader in the Senate, is actually to try to look down the road for the state of Wyoming and utilize that experience that I've gained and say, where do we need to go for? And for me, it's not so much as what I did this year as what I want to accomplish in the next couple of years is some structural reforms to our budget to address these issues that other than very few people, if you haven't sit on appropriations and the Capital Finance Committee, we have $26 billion. Investment returns is the number 3 source of revenue we have in the state of Wyoming. It funds 25% as those investment returns off of that money. Now, a lot of that we can't touch. Some of it's in unemployment compensation funds. Some of it's in state retirement for employees. Some of our permanent funds are constitutionally protected. But that generates a lot of money for us. And so what I'm structurally looking at is how can we position the state with investment returns, reforms to our budget, more fiscal discipline looking out, not looking at just 2 years. It's a 2-year budget cycle. We know what's coming down the track. We cannot continue to grow at 4.5% a year cost of education at the same time property tax is the number one funder, that and mineral severance tax, and those two are going down or capped. And then we have the issue that my colleague Senator Kolb talked about here is the lack of transparency. We have got one of the most complicated revenue and expenditure schemes in the United States. In fact, a number of years, Moody's, which is a firm that rates every country in the world on their credit worthiness, every state, every business, came back about 4 years ago and says, we can't rate Wyoming's credit worthiness because we can't understand their budget process. It is tremendously complicated. And so what I'm going to try to do in the next couple of years, and tried to do a little bit this year with some of the stuff in the budget, is look at the structural reforms, look at how do we operate a fiscally responsible budget, knowing that we have an obligation to future generations of not only kids but taxpayers in this state of Wyoming. So that's kind of where my focus has been the last year or two, and then looking forward, more specifically to issues that are very important for this community, is looking at Colorado River water issues. That takes up the other half of my time that I spend in the legislature working on water policy, water issues, making sure that we have reliable sources of water for agriculture, for heavy industrial uses, trona, and municipal and recreational uses. So that's my focus. That's where I spend my time in the legislature working on those issues. But again, I have to tell you that in my time, I get a little emotional when I talk about people sometimes. I can thank my mother for that because she was a very emotional person. The whole time she was spanking me, she'd be crying. So to my colleagues in the Senate, neither one, but I got to tell you, I really got to brag on these two. They have done an outstanding job for Rock Springs. And so you're lucky to have them. And with that, and I have to say that even because me and Clark worked on appropriations, we've spent a lot of time in that building together, and it's been a pleasure to work with Clark too. He's an asset you have in this community. So, Clark, it's all yours.
Likewise. Thank you. Clark Stith, House District 48, Speaker Pro Tem of the House. Senator Hicks is not only the senator from District 11, he's also the vice president of the Senate. And so along with Senator Kolb and Senator Jones, this area has a really strong Senate representation. So I echo what Senator Hicks just said. So you may wonder, what's the difference between what the representative or senator says they'll do and what they actually do. Before the session started, I, along with another House colleague, published a conservative commitment to Wyoming where we said we wanted to accomplish 5 things: property tax reform, school choice, education savings accounts, do something to fund mental health, the Suicide Prevention Trust Fund hotline, and some utility rate regulation, and get something done on parental rights as well. And what I'm happy to report is that we got all 5 of those done. Property tax is the big one. All homeowners, assuming the governor does not veto it, will get a 25% reduction on their property tax for the next 2 years. So that's great. I was privileged to be the House Conference Chairman for the Joint Conference Committee negotiating the final details of that bill. We walked into the Conference Committee with $125 million allocated to that bill for property tax relief, and we walked out with $225 million. So I took a deep breath as I signed the Conference Committee report, because I hadn't signed a check or a document for $225 million before. So I think that will, but I think that'll give some real relief to people. All in, the amount allocated to property tax relief and reform is $253.2 million. Biggest piece of that is the 25% property tax reduction. There's $20 million for the property tax refund program. There is $8.2 million allocated for veterans, and then as the other senators mentioned, for your assessed valuation on your house, your assessed value, again, assuming the governor doesn't veto these bills, your assessed valuation cannot go up by more than 4% a year going forward in the future. So you don't have to worry about double-digit increases. On parental rights, personal bill, House Bill 92. This is the 3rd year that I tried to get that done, and with the help of my colleague, Senator Kolb here, we got that done, and it's on the governor's desk. A separate companion bill was a committee bill, Senate File 9. That was passed into law without the governor's signature. But essentially, what those both say is that schools, in communicating with parents about their children, have to honor parental rights. So parents need to know what's going on with their kids. And that's the basic principle that animates both of those bills. I have to say a word about transparency. What is one person's transparency is another person's clutter. I think my closet at home is very transparent, because I throw my jeans and shirts and socks on the floor, right? And it's all very transparent because you can see it. It's all over the floor. Whereas my wife, by contrast, she's not transparent at all. She's got containers that hold shoes and socks and shirts and things like that. So I don't think she's being transparent, right? So, because she's hiding all these things in her containers. So it's a continuous debate we have about what the budget should or should not look like. By the numbers, we were able to fully fund the Department of Health. So that's a big deal, right? Nursing homes is the big example. The state picks up a big piece of nursing home costs. That's fully funded. Nursing homes are really expensive. It's about $350 a night to stay in one. A state share of that's about $115 on average, about. The couple of other things, there's lots to talk about. I'll stop talking here in a moment. One thing I was happy about, again, we'll see if the governor line item vetoes it, but there's a proposal to sell a state section of land up adjacent to Teton National Park. That's called the Kelly Parcel. So the budget says that the state will sell it if the government, or if others come up with $100 million to sell it to the federal government. One of the amendments that I was able to run on that successfully, that made it through the whole process so far, is to say, as a condition of that sale, that that the United States Bureau of Land Management not select Alternative B with respect to rights of way and oil and gas proposed management actions. We'll see what comes of that, but the idea essentially was that if we're going to play nice with the federal government in the northwest part of the state, then it should play nice with us here in southwest Wyoming. So, and with that, I'll turn it over to good colleague Bob Davis. By the way, I want to say a special thanks to both Representative Davis and Senator Hicks for making the long trip to be here. I had to walk across the street to get here tonight, and I'm tired for the journey, but I really appreciate the efforts that they made.
Thank you, Clark. Bob Davis, House District 47, and it's the largest House district. It runs along the same lines that the good senator, it runs from Albany County to outside of Sweetwater, from Fremont down to the Utah border. So anyway, it's got 10 municipalities, 12 municipalities, so we have a lot of different needs throughout the whole district. Once again, like the good senator, my bills didn't make it neither. They went down in smoke out there. I learned that I can't count very well this year. So anyway, I didn't quite have enough votes on them. But there was a lot of late nights down there, midnight, several of them, 9 o'clock. You know, even the last night was 9:30 before we finally gavelled out of there. So there was a lot of hours, a lot of stuff crammed into a short time. It was pretty amazing. From the outside looking in here, you know, we did get some tax relief bills out here, and these gentlemen have been talking about them and stuff like that. And what we really need to look forward to in the future is tax reform. How are we going to address that? You know, the short relief is a short time fix, you know, and with the short time fix comes the way to how are we going to backfill those shortcomings that those taxes go to, you know. So that's what we've got, the $253 million that's coming out that will be funded from other, basically industry and stuff like that. We'll pick up that end. You know, we ask ourselves about taxes, and, you know, we're the 47th lowest in the nation as far as personal property tax. Why, you know, and we have 4% sales tax. We have a fifth penny here and there and a sixth penny once in a while for special deals and stuff like that. We don't tax food, you know. Being a border community, we border Colorado. And we go down there and buy our groceries down there, and it's 12 cents on every dollar that we're paying down there, as opposed to when we're up here, 5-6 cents, depending on where you're at, you know. So we ask ourselves, why are people moving to Wyoming? Those are a lot of good reasons to move here. You know, if you're getting mature, you know, you're looking for these things and to make your dollars go further. So I don't know, you know, we've got 8 areas of growth in Wyoming, and we're trying to paint a big picture on the other 16 counties, you know, so, or 15 counties, yeah, not 16. And so I don't know if we're a one size fits all across this state. Let's see, what else did I have? Oh, you know, we do have those 2 existing programs where we raised up to 165% of poverty level from the 135, and that's what the governor requested, an additional $20 million to fund that. And then we do have the, you know, where you can defer your taxes to the county, and then once your sale of your property, and you pay them taxes back. One good piece coming out of the legislation this year as far as local governments is the local government distributions was up. It was up to 146 million and 250,000. So that is up considerable from the years past. So there'll be a little larger checks for the municipalities and counties there. And you look at the budget, briefly, you know, the budget used to be, we had tin cans hid around there. This year we got mayonnaise jars, so they're a little more transparent, all right? But, you know, some of the things in the budget that are a lot of times confusing is, for instance, the state liquor division buys all the liquor for the state and then distributes it out and receives the funding back. Well, on the accounting side, that's showing an expenditure and everything like that. So there's some things, for instance, the Gaming Commission, they receive their wages or their percentage, and that goes back into the state, and then the state distributes that out. So that's also a payout, but it's not really a payout. It's a double, I don't know, it's a way of bookkeeping, however you want to put it, you know. But the other things that are sometimes confusing too is when you have an appropriation does not necessarily mean it's spent. You know, we had, as the good representative down there said, we had $75 million set to help fight the RMP, you know, on behalf of the county. Well, that was struck. So that $75 million is no longer in the budget too. And the governor has his line item vetoes and things like that. So the final budget, the dust still hasn't settled on yet. And with that, you know, it's been a wonderful, wonderful cycle. Apparently it was really wonderful because I went back to see the Chinese dancers over there on Wednesday after we got home on Saturday, and got snowed in Cheyenne for 3 more days. So just can't get enough. And with that, Scott?
Well, I want to thank everyone for being here this evening. It's a pleasure to be here in front of you to return and report. My accolades to you for being involved and wanting to have that information available. You're my heroes for being here, and I thank you for the Chamber for putting this on. I'm Scott Heiner, House District 18, which encompasses not quite as many miles as some of my colleagues here, but parts of Uinta, Lincoln, and Sweetwater counties. So as you've heard from all of my compadres here, I've been striking things off of my list of items I want to talk about. But just a couple of things that I want to clarify on, but I want to really hear questions, so I'm not going to spend much time talking. One of the property tax bills, it deals with long-term home ownership, those that are 65 years of age or older and have paid property taxes in Wyoming for 25 years or more. I got some clarification today from the Department of Revenue. That, of course, that goes into effect next year, and in May of next year, you have to sign an affidavit that you meet that criteria. But I wanted to find out if you could be turn 65 next year in October, or does it have to be at the time you sign the affidavit? So it is the time when you sign that affidavit in May of next year, you have to be 65. So if you're a few days away from your birthday, you may not get that on that first year, that exemption. So just an FYI on that. This year we were able to pass Chloe's Law. We've tried multiple years. What that does is prevents mutilation and puberty blockers of our children. Let them grow up before we let them be experimented on. We had testimony from, the reason we called it Chloe is because this young lady, when she was 14, she had a double mastectomy and went on puberty blockers because she thought she wanted to be a boy. Well, when she was 16 and 17, she decided she really wanted to be a girl, but by then she had some permanent surgery. She had been on these puberty blockers that had affected her bone structure, her voice. We know now it has long-term effects. Europe has stopped allowing puberty blockers over there. It affects the optic nerve. So we got that passed that none of these permanent things can be administered to a minor until they turn 18. Let them make their own decisions when they're old enough to make those decisions rather than as children. So we're pretty proud of that. In the budget, we got the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion program taken out of the University of Wyoming. So that was a big win for us. But gender studies continues in the University of Wyoming. We could not get that out. So they will continue with the gender studies program. We got more work to do. So with that, I'd like to hear questions, and I don't want to spend a lot of time speaking on my own account here.
Thank you so much, senators and representatives. Again, budget is something that's so challenging at every level. It's hard at the federal level. It's hard at the state level. It's hard at the city level. It's hard at my house. There's a lot of work that goes into working on a budget, and we really appreciate again all the work that you've done. We do have a few people here. We don't want to get caught up in the mire and a lot of back and forth. What we'd like to ask is for you to come down and ask questions. You can ask individual representatives if you'd like to, or however you want to do, or if you'd like to make a statement. But we'd like to limit it to one question per person. And then if we can keep the question and answer process to 5 minutes. If it turns into a discussion or a conversation, what we'd encourage you to do is probably get with the representative afterwards or at another time and get your questions answered, if that's fair to everyone. So with that, we would like to invite you to come down to the microphone. Please introduce yourself, state your name, and ask your question.
Could I just interject for a second? So when you do this, I always tell people, when you're talking to legislators, talk slow and don't use big words or you'll confuse us.
Okay.
So if you just try to adhere to that rule, we'll be more concise in providing you answers.
Fabulous. My name is Laura McKee, and I've had not had a lot of education in legislature, but I have recently become very interested and start really following a lot of different things. Martin Luther King said our lives begin when we do things that matter. I think coming here tonight to speak with the Wyoming citizens and the legislatures about what the majority of people in Wyoming want is one of those things that really matter. Let me start with a little history about our great state. Wyoming has voted Republican in every presidential election since 1952, except for a 1964 election with Lyndon B. Johnson. Honor Wyoming acts as a voice of reason by scoring each lawmaker's votes to see if they are in alignment with the most basic and agreed upon responsibilities that all Wyoming voters expect them to uphold. These responsibilities include the Bill of Rights in the U.S. Constitution, the Declaration of Rights in the Wyoming State Constitution, the principles and values in their party platform, Republican or Democrat. The Honor Wyoming Brand Book measures lawmakers' integrity based on the action, not talk, because keeping your word is more than a fair standard to set for any self-respecting Wyomingite. And we shouldn't expect anything less from our elected leaders. I encourage Wyoming voters to become active and search scorecard.limitedgov.org or press@limitedgov.org. You can find how our representatives...
Excuse me, ma'am. Do you have a question? Happy that you're here. What's your question? We're happy to answer any questions you have.
So I'm not going to be able to say what I want to say because it's not a question. He said I could make a statement. This is a statement. There's also the Family Alliance that you can also go into the Family Alliance and you can find out how all this works, the bills. You can read the bills and look into it. But yeah, so if you want to hear a question or hear one of the things I want to talk about, which I have a right to speak as well. So, so there was HB 0050, What is a Woman Act? Failed introduction. This is a act relating to common law statutes and rules and construction specifying definitions and standards for the application of a person's biological sex in laws or rules or regulations, providing for laws distinguishing between accommodating for males and females, requiring the collection of vital statistics and other data to identify persons as male or female at birth. Okay. So JT, Larson, Nemec, and Wiley, you all voted against this. And Tony, you were a co-sponsor on this bill. This bill, and it does have things in there if you're born with a medical condition that you could have been provided with protection because of a disability. But this would have protected athletes, prisons, or others with respect to detention facilities, domestic violence shelters, rape crisis centers, locker rooms, restrooms, any kind of safety or privacy is a concern. And I just want to know how you could vote that way, because now their sexual assaults could happen in bathrooms. It doesn't protect our athletes. And now for 1 year, because it wasn't introduced, and I don't want to hear there wasn't enough time. I know it was 20 days. I know how it works, but you spent a lot of time on the reading of Wyoming. Yes, reading's important, but not as important as protecting women in this great state. So I want to know, and you sponsored it, Tony, and you voted against your own co-sponsored bill. I don't understand. I would like to hear why. And I would like to hear why you, a lot of you, Larson, Nemec, Wiley, and Stith, all vote over 78% of the time with Democrats.
Ma'am.
We're on a slippery slope. Clark.
So I did vote yes on What is a Woman Act. Thank you. And so if you want to give
but I'm asking
opportunity
them how they could vote no.
Yes.
On protecting the women of Wyoming.
Ma'am, I'll answer your question. Representative Wiley, House District 39. One thing that's a very controversial issue, and if it moved forward, it was going to take huge amounts of time. I know you said time is not an issue, but time is an issue, I assure you. We spent nights until midnight there, and like we heard earlier, we were there at the very last day until 9:30 at night, not knowing if we were going to be able to finish or have to come back the next week or have a special session later on. So when you bring these social bills at a time when we're supposed to be working on a budget, which is already so convoluted as we've heard before, there just is not room for this. You can bring this bill the next session during a general session.
1
and
year
there's
from now.
Just a second. I'll let you, we could talk. And there will be plenty of time to do that. Another reason I voted no, this bill was being touted as a parental rights bill. We were working on several other parental rights bills that were going to help our community and constituents in our community that had already been affected by problems that occurred that wasn't being protected or had sideboards in statute.
Yes.
So I didn't want a competing bill like this getting in the way of getting that other legislation through.
Yes,
So
and I
there-
do
there's-
thank you all for the bills that you did get through. We did get some conservative bills through, although the governor has not signed them. And every citizen in Wyoming better get off their rear ends and email and call the governor's office and demand that these bills be signed into law, because I know you guys all worked hard. I know you did. But I expect the integrity part of it is, if you are not going to vote in lines with your party, then you should register as the other party and run as the other party.
So I've been a registered Republican since I could vote. I'm fiscally conservative. I've voted against plenty of social conservative issues or social issues, and I've always taken a conservative standpoint. When you talk about these Honor Wyomings and these other things that grade you, a lot of the time they will take a very small snapshot of a handful of bills. And I will tell you this, if you're worried about what your rating is when you're in Cheyenne and you're trying to make critical decisions, you shouldn't be there, because you have to make these decisions and try to make good decisions for the future of not only the folks at home, but the state moving forward. And that's what I truly believe. So I can't worry about that. And then I would also ask you a question. A lot of these sites and stuff, where's the funding coming from and where are the people behind this? So be careful about what you're reading and what you're seeing out there, and look at what people are trying to do and what we work toward. Because we got a lot done. We talked about it earlier. We did get parental rights done. We last time around we passed law to where you couldn't compete as a male in women's women's athletic events. We do work towards that. But just because something dies or there's not time for it, or we don't vote to pull it out of a drawer, doesn't mean that we're going against the base or what the folks at home need or want. It just means that we are following the system and not trying to burn something down.
So one of them was WyomingFamily.org, and they are the Family Alliance, and they are tracking things and keeping track of it. And also, I would like to ask Senator Stith, and I challenge every Wyoming person to write a letter to the Secretary of State as to why Rebecca Fitzgerald, who is a paid political operative, treasurer of your political action committee, the director of another political group, a registered lobbyist with the Secretary of State, used your office during legislature, which is against Wyoming State Statute 9-13-105 and subsection B, misuse of office. And every person should write a letter if you care about Wyoming, because we're on a slippery slope. We're turning into Colorado.
Ma'am, I would like to address that. Yes, it turns out there's no violation of 9-13-105. That relates to misuse of public office. If you're using your public office for a private gain, in other words, if I were using my office to, make money, to do my private business, if I were having clients there, that would be a misuse of public office. The Speaker Pro Tem's office has historically been used for media relations. In fact, the entire Republican caucus, each member of it, so that's 57 Republicans in the House, that's 29 Republicans in the Senate, chipped in $100 each to pay for a public relations person, and it was announced to everybody that Haley McKee would be using that office just as a place to be in the state capitol. So there's no misuse of public office here, and I think I find I just find it strange that someone's quick to attack someone as being dishonest or being corrupt when there are no facts to support that. In other words, the Capitol is open. So, for example, people who are, who have also paid political people sitting in the balcony, they're using the balcony of the House to do their work as well. So there's no, so I really find it strange, this idea that the People's House, that the Wyoming State Capitol is not open. If the headline, as I recall, was that there were politics going on in the Speaker Pro Tem's office. And so I thought to myself, well, we've got 93 legislators, we've got a governor, you've got 94 politicians in this building, and the fact that there might be politics happening, I don't think is breaking news.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what the Secretary of State has to say if people, I'm just calling for an investigation into it. And if it's not a violation of the law, then the end result will be there. So.
Hi.
State your name and your rank.
Well, I can't. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I can't say my name because I went 2 days ago, I went to the doctor's and I couldn't even say my name to the doctor. And she said there's something wrong. And so they put me in a padded cell so they can find out if I've got memory loss. And the first thing they said for me to do? Okay, they said, they asked me to count to ABC backwards. And I think, what? That's silly.
I'm with you. I could never say them forwards. How the hell am I supposed to say them backwards?
They wanted to know if I lost my memory. So it said, turn back, And so I did. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. And they said, you know what? You got your memory. But I didn't give them my name, so they said, you're forgetting your memory.
You weren't suffering from Bidenomics, were you?
I think.
I'm glad.
I think so. I think so. But I'm not going to be up here a whole long time. I just want to let you all know that I don't know you. The only two people I know is Senator Kolb, Representative Stitch from way back when he was a lawyer. Interesting. And Kolb is a county commissioner. Awesome guy, I'll tell you what. And so I would love to get to know you. So I am going to work really hard to profile you, every one of you, because usually what I profile is the city, the county, and I profile and get to know, our politicians, and you'd be surprised what you don't learn. I mean, it's awesome because when I go vote, I want to make sure I know who I'm voting for. And there is nothing like looking in the closet. Oh, nothing like looking in the closet. But I just wanted to get up and let you know that, hey, I appreciate you coming. I know this is really hard, and I know you're tired. And I know, I can't say, I can just say a few, that you're really trying to do your jobs because I don't know the others. But I will learn about you. Believe me, I'll learn about you. And there's only one thing I need to say, okay? This is between Senator Kolb and I, not you, Stitch. Senator Kolb and I is going to talk about this, and this is a question. Do you know why I told you not to sit in that chair?
Shirley, I suspect this is where the mayor sat, but is that I don't know. Could you help me?
Yes, I will help you. I've even asked Max. Max, I would like to come in here and steal that chair so us senior citizens can take it out and give it a target practice. So we can get our guns out, and us Wyoming people have a lot of guns. And it's the most evil, disgusting, lying, cheating chair that you ever wanted to know. And if you don't believe it, just ask former mayor. But I found out that if I was to steal this chair, that the chief of police will arrest me and put me in jail for R&R. You know what R&R is? Rest and relaxation. Thank you very kindly. And just think, I could be there sleeping anytime I want. I could be there watching TV, reading books, 3 meals a day. Just really fast. I'm just about done. 3 meals a day. That's why I asked you not to sit in that chair, because I know what you're doing. Thank you. So do you have something to say to me?
Mrs. Zakeli, I'm very sorry I sat in this chair.
You remember that. And poor Max, we've been praying. I've been putting his name in the temple, praying for him that that chair don't fall apart.
Okay, do we have any
Thank
questions for the folks?
Fred Von Ahrens, resident of Rock Springs. First of all, I pay a lot of attention to the legislative body throughout the year because it has so much impact on my business. And what I have a lot of passion about is education in the state of Wyoming. And to a person, I hear nothing but pride for the legislation body that represents Southwest Wyoming. So thank you to each one of you. And, politics is about compromise, and the late Senator Enzi always talked about the 80% rule. You really find a way to work together to advance the cause of the state, and I believe you folks are doing a great job with that, so thank you.
Oh man, I don't know how to wind it into one question. I wanted to tell Stacey Jones. I thank you so much for your speech about keeping Wyoming lands in Wyoming hands. I know that the Kelly parcel isn't going as possible. That leads to, if I make it really quick? Okay, so I don't understand, and maybe you guys could explain to us how we could put a sale of a land within the budget. And then my second question is, those for you that voted no on HB 51, which was the public indecency, can you tell me why you voted that way? And then SF 32 was a bill about limited psychoactive substances and hemp. It's really affecting our schools right now. And I feel like that was an important bill to keep our kids safe. I want to thank Scott Heiner for always getting back to me with emails. And how much money did we put away in the rainy day fund again? And then also I wanted to thank John Cole for always getting back to me and really being a good steward of the state. Thank you so much. It was SF 32 and HB 51 I have on my chart. So SF 32 was limited psychoactive substances in hemp. And I have down on my chart that JT and Nemec voted no on that one. And then JT and Wiley voted no on the public indecency. And then my last comment is, if we're going to make time for not talking about super important bills, then I feel like we should make sure that if we're looking at bills in session that are not going to be super impactful for Wyoming during a budget session like Wyoming's Read Day, then we should kill that bill before we kill What is a Woman or bills that are going to protect our children. Thank you. Did I go fast enough?
Thank you for the question. And on Senate File 32, I can answer that question. And the honest answer is I heard from more constituents that live in my district that they did not want me to vote for that bill. And when I hear from a chunk of constituents that want me to vote a certain way, I listen. So if there's a different feeling about how that should have gone, then I need people to reach out to me. So.
Let me go ahead and address that too. I did a lot of research on Delta 8. I've got 3 shops in Green River that employ about 15 people. And I actually tried Delta 8. has no effect. So I heard the stories about up in Cody, a bunch of kids tried it. They said they used Delta 8. I don't know. I was looking at it on the businesses. I don't know how many shops in Rock Springs sell it, but I know in Green River there's 3 shops. That's 15 people are going to be put out of business because it did pass. So that's the reason I was against it.
Hi, Laura. I think I did email you back for ESAs and stuff. We talked.
Yeah,
a
you
little
did.
bit.
Yeah, you did.
I try to answer. Everything's really busy. So the Delta 8, I voted against that. I also voted against or for a bill that would require the vapes to be regulated.
Yeah.
That went down.
Yeah, it did yeah.
Moving on, the public indecency, we have laws in the statutes right now that cover that. And if we want to expand upon that, I'll go back again. It's a budget session. We had midnight nights. We were pushing the time frame.
I was right there along with you guys every day on my TV.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So those can be worked again. It can be brought back and it can be worked, and that's our job. You never finish and have this perfect polished product when we're done. You're going to have to continually work towards something. So I thought it was more important, and that's why I didn't bring a personal bill. We needed to work through the budget. We needed to make sure we did, fiscal bills this time around, and there's going to be another day to continue on to work on those other issues. But there's already protections for public indecency.
When we look at that, please, when there's bills like Wyoming Reads Day, don't kill the time that you have with a bill that's not going to be so impactful in our community.
So when you have a bill like Wyoming Reads Day, I think it probably took 20 seconds to do a vote and it goes through. When you do some of these other bills, then you start to get into debate, and even with the time constraints and stuff that we have placed upon us in a budget session, it still just eats up huge amounts of the day.
But it ate up a whole morning of a committee, and it ate up. I mean, it did eat up quite a bit of time.
So exactly, you're just helping. You understand that how something like that can just start gradually taking huge amounts of time. I didn't bring that bill. It just come before us. The vote went through, and it passed quickly. But another bill, 51, like we're talking about, that could have took days of debate, which we didn't
We're
have.
seeing an indecency happening in front of our children that is at all fronts right now, and I just feel like that's an important issue. And the last thing, I would really like to thank all of our senators for bringing back HB 125 and taking the risk and going against procedure to bring back such an important bill. So I want to thank you guys again on that. HB 125 is a bill that, what's the name of it? It's got, it eliminates the gun-free zones and helps protect our, yep. So, thank you very much for that.
Excuse me, but Sharon asked me to ask you a question. Who's up for election this year? Whoa, everyone is? Holy Toledo. Are you?
Not the old timer.
Okay, thank you. She just wanted to know what's up.
This was my favorite part about the white rod. They did that. Could get it done in a bill.
Right.
It always died.
Would you like to make closing statements, or do you want to go through? Go ahead, Cody.
Rick, humbly, as a freshman representative, I missed a huge note sitting in front of me when we went through the introductions. So our electricity rates, that's another thing that we worked on. We had 4 bills come out of committee, and essentially what it's doing is some of it's for reliability. That's going to push back a little bit on the wind and solar and stuff like that. That says if you can't perform reliable load power at any given point, there's going to be some fines associated with it, and I think the cap's $1 million. Another bill we did is basically telling the West Coast, because they're deciding not to purchase anything other than renewable energy by a certain date. And the bills that we ran through when we worked on all interim was actually advocating that the Wyoming ratepayer cannot be burdened by anything that doesn't benefit the state of Wyoming. So what that's doing is telling other people, take your political agenda, keep it at home. If you need our baseload coal provided power, please buy it, and we'll make more of it for you. So I just wanted to touch base on that.
Was there anything on gas by chance? Because the gas.
The natural gas?
Natural gas, yeah.
So that is another public utility, but the rate cases and stuff, and I think, I just want to go back again, I think they asked for 30 and it ended up being 5 this time around. But, so the natural gas, the rate case had already been done, and we didn't really work on that. It was more towards electrical generation, yeah.
Maybe natural gas next?
Natural gas, if it becomes an issue and we need to address it, absolutely, and especially because it's a public utility, I think there will be some expansion of the natural gas going into the power plants. That's just the way that things are going right now. And then fortunately, Wyoming is on the cutting edge of doing the nuclear stuff. So like who invests their money or not, I think it's very fortunate that Wyoming is one of the leaders of the pack nationally moving forward to bring back this, this idea of nuclear power is a good thing, because it is. That's if you need baseload power to keep these lights on, you either burn coal or natural gas or nuclear. The other stuff just doesn't cut it. I traveled all over the United States during interim. Everybody says the same thing. Everybody's having the same problems with the federal government. So we just need to hold our ground and stick to what we know is right in our legacy industries and keep supporting that.
I didn't talk a little bit earlier about going to Washington, D.C. last week and meeting with Director Tracy Stone Manning, Director of the BLM. The group that went with genuine hearts, and we tried to go and really portray our community and let her know how catastrophic this BLM RMP could be. And not only just to the citizens, but to our industry, our livelihoods, our recreation, and just basically our access to public lands. So we were very heartfelt in what we told her, and we went in calm demeanor, and hopefully we did get our point across to her. I think it was an important meeting. It kind of got sprung on us at the last minute, but we all jumped together and made that trip. I did want to talk one more thing about the Kelly parcel. I know it's kind of a controversial thing, but I did talk with a bunch of my constituents here, some of the county commissioners, some of the people on the task force, and just a lot of people. And my constituents said, don't sell. $100 million is not worth it. Don't sell. It's not raining. We don't need that money right now, and we're not making any more land inside of a national park. So I know Clark's bill did help with. Obviously, it was. I tried my heart out, but I failed in my endeavor. But Clark's bill does help, his amendment. But anyway, that's why I thought. Why would we let that go right now with what we have going on with the BLM RMP? If it's in state hands, we have more control over it. So I just wanted to give my point of view on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. I wanted to say something about the interaction between your representatives. We just talked about the Kelly parcel, which I wasn't partial to selling the Kelly parcel, for the same reasons that were stated. But I want to explain something to everybody, because I think it's something that you just don't know, because you're not there on the floor. There's active conversations going forth between Senator Jones, myself, Representative Stith, so I gave him a raise there for a second, and of trying to negotiate some sort of better position for us. And it's going back and forth, back and forth. People are getting other people involved, seeing if it was going to work or not. So there's a lot of things that happens in the delegation that I don't think, you probably don't hear about. So I just wanted to say, we just don't sit in isolation. We just don't sit in our little cubicle and do our votes, We talk to each other, and we try to do what's best that represents our area. Thank you.
Any other comments?
You guys never talked to me.
Rick, I do have one little question here, or one observation here. Wyoming is what America once was, and your legislators are trying to preserve that through the best of our abilities out there. So we need to be aware of that. That's it. Thanks, Rick.
How much was left over in the budget that they put away in rainy day fund? I didn't get that.
So yes, that was a good question. We did not answer that. According to the fiscal profile that came out, it is what's expected to be in the Legislative Stabilization Reserve account, also known as the Rainy Day Fund, as of June 30th of 2026, at the end of this biennium, is $1.477 billion, so about 1.5. And that's typically a target. And the idea of the LSRA, or the Legislative Stabilization Reserve account, is to act as a kind of financial shock absorber, right? So that if the revenue doesn't come in as high as expected, you've got a $1.5 billion cushion. And so right now that represents about 40-some% of the biennial budget. Because Senator Hicks is right that we do have a volatile income stream, and that's the purpose of the LSRA, is to smooth out the bumps.
Very good question. Any others? Thank you all for coming. We would like to remind you that on April 4th, we're going to be meeting with the county commissioners, if Chairman West will still allow us to do that.
A little nervous now. Beach.
Rick, I just have one comment. So I was proud to sponsor the House Joint Resolution 3. It was support for local input in federal rulemaking. My counterparts here, everyone in Sweetwater County supported that, and a lot of them were co-sponsors, and unfortunately it died due to lack of time in the Senate, but it's another way of us standing against the BLM, and I was very proud to sponsor that and try to carry that through. So and another thing I want to mention, and this isn't related to session, but a good chunk of us up here served on the governor's BLM task force, and that was just another way that we are trying to come up with a solution that works for the people of Wyoming. So we spent weeks on that specific task force trying to come to an agreement with the BLM. So
Thank you, Representative. So I think one of the most important things to take from this experience is that communication is so important. Getting your ideas across, but also listening on both ends, and we're all working together, and we're working as well as anybody can work in these days and times. It's challenging times right now, and we can certainly do a lot better together than we can apart. So thank you for being here. We encourage you to attend the commissioners meeting. We're going to serve donuts and coffee, so maybe that'll help. Thank you all for coming.